Hi there folks, my name is Matthew Palmer, and in this programme I'm going to show you some of my fantastic watercolour hints and tips, including how to paint 5-minute skies and trees. Let's get started. In this tip I'm going to show you how to paint a watercolour cloudy sky. I've got my colours from the tubes, I've squirted them into the palette. I mix the colours first before we put any water because this is a wetting to wet sky, so it's just a case of cleaning the size 16 SAA wash brush and just putting the water in there. It's just using natural yellow, really pale, bags of water with this one, probably 70% water. So get lots and lots of water there because natural yellow is good for just taking the background off basically. And then natural blue is a bit stronger. The water goes in there first, but again, more paint. Make it heavier, make it darker. And then I'm just going to use some natural grey. Don't need too much of that one. That's just to put some shadows to the base of the clouds there. I'll leave that in the water for a second. And then using a natural sponge, it's perfect for dampening the sky first. So give it a good squeeze and really soak up all that water. Squeeze out the excess. And it's very simple to use a sponge just to wet the paper with. You can see how simple it goes on and how quick it goes on with a sponge. The problem is putting too much on though, so just make sure that you don't over soak it. That's probably got enough water there. The whole piece of paper is shiny. And then we'll get the brush and just dab your brush on the side of your water pot. Natural yellow goes in first, really simple. Just imagine you're conducting an orchestra, very simple. The bottom half of the sky, just literally wafting away. Try and get some distance to it. Clean my brush, wipe it on the side again. Use natural blue, ready to go. All the way across the top, and you can see how easy it goes on. It just glides in there, it's very smooth. All watercolour skies start off wet and just work them through. Leaving some white gaps for maybe a few clouds, that kind of thing. And then it's just a case of working them in. You can see it goes darker as it mixes with the yellow, but really do it nice and quick, nice and bouncy. And then just use some of that grey just to put a few shadows in. And you can see how quick, and the quicker you do these, I think the better they are because the more movement you get in your sky and the more action you get. You could always clean your brush. Squeeze it like you're milking a cow. Squeeze out all the water. And just use that brush just to dampen away some of those grey bits. Almost wipe them up into the light areas. You can see a bit of angle to it. And then literally the final thing to do is get some kitchen roll. Try and avoid using lure roll, it's too bitty. Scrunch it up into a nice little ball like this. And use this just to roll a few clouds. Keep rotating the tissue because of course it will be soaking up the actual colour, and you can see it's giving the nice fluffy edge. Try and do this in the areas where it's grey at the bottom. Lightly wipe the bottoms of the white parts of the clouds, and if you want to get away with a few more, as long as it's still damp, you can do as many as you think there, and you can see there just putting little tiny bits, maybe over the grey is quite nice there. And it's very simple, just to roll little tiny fluffy cotton wool style clouds. So it's just twisting into a little tiny ball of tissue. It's a bit like cleaning bird muck off a window, that kind of thing. Just twist it and just lightly dab the edges. And again, as long as it's still wet, you can continue to add the clouds. One thing not to do is get that brush and put it back on there because you will spoil it. So just to finish the sky off, it needs a little bit of landscape, but make sure it's nice and dry first. In this tip, I'm going to show you how to paint a fantastic 5-minute watercolour sunset sky. So let's get started. We'll start by mixing a few colours in the palette there. So using the wash brush, I've got the water there, I've got all the paints in the actual palette squirted, ready to go. Bags of water, folks, always remember that one. Natural yellow. The second colour, burnt sienna, which is a nice rusty kind of orangey colour. And then we've got some alizarin crimson. Again, stacks of water, folks, for this. Really get it all mixing through there. Clean your brush every time in between mixes, and then we'll go for some natural blue, which we can put right at the top of the sky. Wonderful. And the final colour is just natural grey. Clean your brush again. And then just before we start painting, we're going to use a Matthew Palmer sun painting gadget, which is a penny or a pound coin wrapped in tissue. Grab it in the back of the tissue there and just gather it from the other side and then just twist nice and tight to get a nice stamp ready to go when we need that. Just pop that to one side. And then using the natural sponge again, bags of water, we're going to dampen it through again. I want to put quite a lot of water on this. This paper will take it. It's a nice cotton paper. And it's always worth putting your time into this, putting the water on. Again, don't over soak it. So that's nice and wet there. And then back to the brush. Always wipe it on the side of your water pot. I'm going to start off with natural yellow. And I'm just going to sweep this in the middle. Just going to sweep it in the middle there. Nice horizontal. Now you can see how clean it goes on. Again, try and fade it down towards the bottom if you can. Let it disappear into the distance. But this time the brush strokes are more horizontal. Let it disappear down. And then we'll go for burnt sienna. I've not got to clean my brush because burnt sienna is a richer colour. And all the colours will mix on the paper anyway. So again, nice forward and back brush strokes, horizontals. Put this just down from the top of the paper there. Bring it down. Again, get those colours mixing on the paper. Get a transition, get a gradient as the colours come through. Let it just work down. There we go. Horizontals, forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. I've not got to clean the brush again. I'm going to go for the blue, natural blue, right at the top. See, that's getting much darker now. This is more like what we're talking about for the sunsets. Bring the darkness to the top to bring it forward. Bring it down. Forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. Just turn into a nice smooth gradient colour. And the final colour is a little bit of red, a little bit of crimson, just to give a bit of wow to this. And that's going to be sort of in this bottom, well, it could be either side, left or right corner. Just sweep it across. Just sweep it across there. Fade the colours together. It does help to stand up for doing the skies because you can really get into it. And using the whole arm to really swing it across. And then what I'm going to do, folks, is just pick up that coin, which is wrapped in tissue there. And I'm going to put this over the red, so it's just going to be about there somewhere, and literally just stamp it on, hold it for a few seconds, and let go, and you should see the sun or the moon. And then I'm going to put that down there, use a bit of the grey, natural grey, same brush, but a dry brush. Pick the grey up, wipe it over tissue, and just put a few little horizontal wispy clouds, just sweeping across. The paper's still damp at this point, very dry, folks, for this extremely dry brush. And even put a little bit of a twist to the tops of some of these clouds, just to help it along a little bit. And we can just literally get those working through. And as long as the paper's wet, you're going to get bleeding edges, or known as bleeding paint. So literally, it's just having these few minutes fiddling, sticking some bleeding paint clouds on. Soft edges. Use the point of the brush, give it a twist. If you need to dry your brush, that's perfect because you can just lightly soften the base away. And there you go, folks. A very effective and simple 5-minute sunset sky. So just to finish this thing off, what we need to do is just bring in some landscape to give you the base. In this tip, I'm going to show you how to paint a 5-minute nighttime watercolour sky. Let's get started by mixing a few colours, folks. We've got the paints in the palette, bags of water, nice and clean water, of course, and we're going to be using some alizarin crimson. Now, this is a real powerful colour, so get bags of water with it. Keep it nice and clean. Second colour is going to be some natural blue. Now, this again could be slightly darker. Make this a slightly richer blue, natural blue. Clean your brush, and then we'll go for some natural grey to put some dark clouds in this one as well. So we'll use natural grey, and we'll get that there. And then we'll clean the brush. I've got the old penny wrapped in the tissue again there. We've got the sponge, which we're going to dampen. I'm going to wet the paper. Put lots of water on again. Don't be afraid to splash it on. If it's a cotton paper like this, it will go on very easily. That's perfect there. So I'll put that to one side, and then we'll start painting. What we'll do is put the crimson on first. Nice loaded brush, and we'll just put this from the center. Horizontals again for this one. Work it down. Keep picking lots of colour up. Work it down, forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. If you get little spots like this on your picture, leave it there. It'll just blow away. If you start to scratch it off, it will scratch your paper. It'll flutter away in the wind. Fade it down towards the bottom. I'm just going to go a touch high with that one, so it's almost 2/3 down. Straight into the blue. Don't bother cleaning your brush, you don't need to. Put the blue right at the top. Now you can see straight away that that is a little bit dark, a little bit richer than the red. I want to bring this blue right down over the red so it starts to mix together on the paper, creating a bit of a purpley tinge. Then we'll go for the grey. Again, I've not got to clean the brush, but the thing with the grey is just to make sure it's not soaking in colour, so just wipe it on the side of your palette first. Just using the point of the brush, I want to twist the dark clouds. I'm going to make them smaller. So just imagine the steam train going by. It's that kind of effect. I'll do the same from this side as well. Get the grey. Of course, the paper's still wet, so we get a nice bleeding paint again. You can't beat a bit of bleeding paint. Just work it down. Get them overlapping so they come down like a cross. We're going for a spooky atmospheric sky. Clean your brush. Squeeze it out like you're milking a cow. So your brush goes flat like a spade. And what we can now do is we can just lightly drag on a diagonal the bottom of the cloud. Squeeze it if it starts to run out of energy. That's a top tip there. It almost gives a nice direction to it as well. Then we'll go for the moon. We get the coin. This is going to go just off center, just where the two clouds kind of come into each other. Give it a good stamp there. Hold it for a few seconds and let go. And you can see it puts that misty moon. If you're lucky, maybe even a bit of grey there as well. Then just using a little bit of tissue, which I've ripped off, and I'll twist it into a ball. And then just putting a few highlights on the side of the clouds where the moon's illuminating it. Ever so lightly dabbing away a few lighter bits. Again, keep giving yourself that clean piece of tissue to do this with. That's important. We can do both sides as well. And it's just creating a character, an atmosphere to the picture. There we go. And you can see how simple it is. As long as it's damp, it'll let you do it. Just lightly soften them off to the side so they do become part of the actual picture. So I'm just lightly wiping away the opposite side away from the moon, and that way it just beds them in a touch. And then that is very simply the 5-minute nighttime watercolour sky. So what you can do now is put some landscape on, which really finishes off any watercolour sky.